This is Isaiah Francis Mamak of Automotive Department, 5th year, here to show you the videos I had compiled from the web to help us understand achromatopsia. The first part will tell us how the eye works. Enjoy!
You might have heard that light is a kind of wave, and that the color of an object is related to the frequency of light waves it reflects. High frequency light waves look violet, low frequency light waves look red, and in between frequencies look yellow, green, orange, and so on. You might call this idea physical color, because it says that color is a physical property of light itself. It's not dependent on human perception. And while this isn't wrong, it isn't quite the whole story either. For instance, you might have seen this picture before. As you can see, the region where the red and green lights overlap is yellow. When you think about it, this is pretty weird. Because light is a wave, two different frequencies shouldn't interact with each other at all. They should just coexist, like singers singing in harmony. So, in this yellow-looking region, two different kinds of light waves are present. One with a red frequency and one with a green frequency. There's no yellow light present at all. So, how come this region, where the red and green lights mix, looks yellow to us? To understand this, you have to understand a little bit about biology, in particular, about how humans see color. Light perception happens in a paper-thin layer of cells, called the retina, that covers the back of your eyeball. In the retina, there are two different types of light-detecting cells, rods and cones. The rods are used for seeing in low light conditions, and there's only one kind of those. The cones, however, are a different story. There are three kinds of cone cells that roughly correspond to the colors red, green, and blue. When you see a color, each cone sends its own distinct signal to your brain. For example, suppose that yellow light, that is, real yellow light with a yellow frequency, is shining on your eye. You don't have a cone specifically for detecting yellow, but yellow is kinda close to green and also kinda close to red, so both the red and green cones get activated, and each sends a signal to your brain saying so. Of course, there's another way to activate the red cones and the green cones simultaneously, if both red light and green light are present at the same time. The point is, your brain receives the same signal regardless of whether you see light that has the yellow frequency or light that is a mixture of the green and red frequencies. That's why, for light, red plus green equals yellow. And how come you can't detect colors when it's dark? Well, the rod cells in your retina take over in low light conditions. You only have one kind of rod cell, and so there's only one type of signal that can get sent to your brain, light or no light. Having only one kind of light detector doesn't leave any room for seeing color. There are infinitely many different physical colors, but because we only have three kinds of cones, the brain can be tricked into thinking it's seeing any color by carefully adding together the right combination of just three colors, red, green, and blue. This property of human vision is really useful in the real world. For example, TV manufacturing. Instead of having to put infinitely many colors in your TV set to simulate the real world, TV manufacturers only have to put three, red, green, and blue. Which is lucky for them, really.
Rods and cones is responsible in how we sense light, and if cones have abnormalities, it will lead to color blindness. The next video will briefly explain color blindness.
Of our eyes, we have light-detecting cells called cones. These cones contain three different types of photopigments, which are sensitive to different wavelengths of visible light. And while the wavelengths detected by each cone tend to overlap, it is easy for us to categorize the cones as being red, green, or blue.
If you have normal color vision, your red, green, and blue cones are all working properly, and you'd be called a trichromat. However, some people are dichromats, meaning that they only have two types of cones instead of three.
This typically affects about 2% of the male population, who are either missing their red or green cones. These people can't distinguish between red, orange, yellow, and green, which definitely makes those sunsets a lot less interesting.
Now we know a little about color blindness. It's fair enough to ask, how do they get it? Majority of color vision deficiency is inherited, though sometimes it might be because of a disease. It typically passes from mother to son. Inherited color blindness doesn't cause blindness or other vision loss.
is a recessive gene carried on the X chromosome. So to be colorblind, all your X chromosomes need to be affected. Men receive the X chromosome from their mothers and the Y from their fathers. So if their father isn't colorblind, but their mother is a carrier, there's a 50% chance they will receive the affected X chromosome. Women, on the other hand, receive one X from their mother and the other from their father. Again, there's a 50% chance they will receive the affected chromosomes, but because it's recessive, they will only be a carrier. If that woman now has a child with a colourblind man, the sons again will have a 50% chance of being affected, but the daughters will definitely be a carrier, with a 50% chance of being colourblind themselves. If that colourblind daughter starts a family of her own with a non-colourblind man, all her sons will be colourblind, and all her daughters just carriers. If she'd have had a family with a colourblind man though, it's tough luck for any kids, they're all colourblind. The idea that women can't be colourblind is a myth. It's less likely as it has to affect all of your
Mark Zuckerberg and even Prince William are known to be colorblind. But do you know what colorblindness is? Colorblindness, also known as color vision deficiency, is not a disease, but the decreased ability to see color or differences in color. Approximately every 1 in 12 men and 1 in 200 women are affected by it. So, there's a high probability that someone you know, a neighbor or a co-student, is colorblind. There are 4 different types of colorblindness. Each of them provides deficiency in different color shades. For a person with normal vision, it is hard to imagine what it is like to be colorblind and how people like this see the world. Which color do they see? Do they see any at all? What does it mean not to be able to see red? And so on. That is why we at Brightside prepared a visual comparison of all colorblindness types and put them together for your better understanding. Let's have a look together. People with normal vision usually see the world around them in these colors. However, people with deuteranopia, the first type of colorblindness, see the same picture like this. Deuteranopia is the most common form of colorblindness. Around 4.63% of men suffer from it, and in many cases don't even realize it. It's clear from the photo that the colors have lost some of their brightness, especially with regard to green and red. And people with protanopia see these pencils like this. Protanopia is a less widespread form of colorblindness. Only around 1% of men experience it. All shades of green and red appear somewhat faded, and blue and yellow shades remain virtually unchanged. The third type of colorblindness is tritanopia, and they see colors like this. Though a very rare type of colorblindness, tritanopia affects both men and women to an equally small degree. Those who experience it see the world in greenish-pink tones.